This portion of the CU podcast is brought to you by Retroware and Prison City. Prison City is breaking out of its digital cell with physical editions for a Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5. Pre-orders are open now through March 22nd via limited run games. Each physical copy includes a reversible cover, collectible 90s style crazy caps, and the final major update complete on the game card or disc.
Set in the far future of a dystopian 1997, Prison City is a modern retro action game inspired by late-era NES classics and over-the-top 90s sci-fi action movies. You'll battle techno-terrorists with your chalk room and grenades, power up by eating hot dogs for health, and track down contacts to help take down massive bosses. Developed by Programancer, known for angry video game nerd 8-Bit and currently working on the Transylvania adventure of Simon Quest, the game delivers tight mechanics, intricate level design, and fast-paced combat. Fight across 8+ zones, like a freeway, a factory, a nature preserve, each with unique challenges, hazards, and powerful bosses to test you. Prison City is packed with nods and homages to classic action movies and games from the 80s and 90s, including iconic one-liners, memorable characters, and familiar gameplay mechanics. Fans of the action genre will feel right at home.
Prison City's massive final update is live now across all platforms, adding major gameplay improvements, new combat options, and a refreshed take on one of the game's most infamous stages. There is a new bomber mode and additional minigame variants, adding extra replay value and pure arcade-style action beyond the core adventure. Break out with Prison City. Pre-order your physical PS5 or Switch copy now through March 22nd at limitedrungames.com. Ian, there was big news in the retro gaming community.
Yes.
One of the stalwarts of the community.
I thought I was starting this one, Patrick.
Start it off, Ian.
Yes, big news and a big collection has been sold in the retro gaming community. If you have been part of retro gaming for any length of time and have an internet connection, you're probably aware of the immortal John Hancock, who has been putting out informational videos and collecting for probably the better part of 30 years, if not longer. John's pretty well known, not just for the online presence, but in retro circles and in convention circles, because John likes to use his collections to educate or to teach. He wants his collections to be out there so people can appreciate them, and I should say appreciate, but learn from. It's not, I don't think it's ever been a thing for John where he's doing this to puff his own chest. He's very interested in getting this stuff out there. If you've ever gone to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, you've likely seen stuff that John has provided for the museum and otherwise. Every Portland Retro Gaming Museum has had either some sort of full set or a representative partial set of something.
NES,
Genesis, Atari, Genesis stuff.
Super Nintendo, maybe.
Not sure.
Jaguar, maybe.
So I'm almost positive Jaguar. He's had tons of stuff out there at these conventions, and that's the convention that I know him most from. I know he does others. I know he does quite a bit in the Northwest. So likelihood is you've heard of him, you've seen something he's done, or you're aware of him.
I've interviewed him on the Nuts Coming podcast like 9 years ago.
For years now, I mean, for almost as long as I can remember, John's been looking for something to do with the collection. He's always kind of had an end goal. And it goes along with what I've said. He's wanted to educate and put this stuff on display. So with loose terminology, there's been always some discussion about wanting to have a museum at the end of this. And to, have a place to display this when he's done. And over the years, a lot of opportunities, I think, and headway that John, and he talks about this in the video you can watch, where he talks about getting rid of this collection. He ran into a lot of roadblocks, a lot of things that seemed like they had positive starts with a lot of promise, and then, that kind of petered out. And I think, without him saying this directly, I think one of the reasons why that may have happened, and I didn't really comprehend the scope of this, is how fucking big his collection is. Now, going back to what I said, I've known he's always had a huge collection, And obviously, I have always seen the stuff he brings out to conventions to display. I did not. I knew he had full sets, and apologies to John. I guess I didn't realize how many full sets he had, or how much stuff he had. I don't care much.
Yeah, not all full sets,
but lots.
But
and
a good amount.
I don't care much about people's private collections. That's not to sound mean. I just don't. Now, the stuff you take out and you put at conventions and things like that, now that's really cool to me. So I knew John from what his public collection was.
Which, by the way, I emailed John to ask some questions for this segment, to putting my journalistic hat on this week, but with both him and Brandon from Retro Dodo. 11,000 items.
Yeah.
That makes my collection look small, and my collection is not, Ian knows it's not in great shape laying around here, but my collection is not small. But it makes mine look small, 11,000.
I mean, John, did you have an expansion wing on your house?
Well, I'm jealous of people with basements, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no,
basements, trust me, if I had a basement, Ian, this would be lickety split around here.
I can't wait. I've got so much room in my basement. One of the first things I'm doing when I move back to Buffalo is I'm building a dark room, I'm getting a pinball machine down there, and I'm getting a 3D printer.
Let me tell you,
I'm going to use my basement to death.
I'm not saying I'm going to buy another house anytime soon because the interest rates suck, but then the prices are going to drop. I want a basement. Anyway, go on.
So
basements cure all.
Anyways, so back to John. He had this end goal kind of in mind. Ran into the issues. I think size and scope of the collection, just my personal guess, may have been part of it. He also wanted, as we've said a bunch of times, he wants this to be, as much of this as possible, he wanted to be visible and public. And I believe that because that's why there were so many starts and stops and issues along the way. Yeah. I know he had, I believe, an offer from someplace, which I actually think I know what that is, and I would talk to you about that later. Just as a fun little topic.
Okay, like he gave a couple examples.
But like
Next Level Pinball was spoken to potentially host it. The Corvallis Museum or Seattle Pop Culture Museum. So there was plans that were talked about.
There was a place he said made an offer, but they could not guarantee anything of his would be on display. So he passed on that.
Let's talk about for a second what a museum is. Let's talk about it. Museums, as we know them, do displays of items. They do collection sets. They rotate things. Mm-hmm. However, museums have a lot of shit you never see.
Right.
In the back. Stuff they do research on, or they're cleaning up, or just holding because you can't possibly show everything. You can't.
Right. I mean, I'll make a perfect example. The Strong in Rochester.
Yeah.
I've been to the Strong. I have not seen their new video game wing, but I saw the old one, and then I saw the archives. I was taken back and shown the archives, and the archives are full of cool stuff. But you cannot, and it doesn't make sense to display
everything.
So much of it.
Yeah.
Museums are ostensibly also about research and education, and for people who are in those fields to go and learn. Yeah. That's why you have some of these archives.
Yeah, like the Video Game History Museum in Frisco doesn't just have a bunch of like collections out. They have experiences to learn about.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the period of 8-bit. Here's the video game crash. Here's a Pong, giant Pong. You learn about that's to me what museums are. They're experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anyway, like I said, kept running into walls. I can imagine that over time, and I don't know a whole lot about the story, in this in-between period, but I just imagine that after a large period of time, this starts to get frustrating. You're constantly butting your head up against the wall, and you want to make some moves. You have a large collection. Look, I have relatively small collections in my life, and they can, especially if it's a collection you're kind of done with, they start to feel like dead weight on you. Because they take up space in your house, they take up space in your brain, and it's a constant question of what am I doing with it. So he did release this video, and he has, I guess the right word would be divested of what he said. I believe was 99%. Right, 99% of his collection.
Let's talk about the 40% first, because that's probably a smaller conversation.
Well, yes. So 40% of it was flat out donated to a group called Guys, Games, and Beer. I like their directness. And from what I can tell, and I listened to the interview they did with John, They seem like a group of guys that
Midwest guys, I believe.
Well, they're in the Midwest, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Group of guys that talk about games, and what I gather from them in doing some research into them is that they like to go around and basically do the sort of thing that John did, which is, look at your collection. What do you got? What makes sense to bring to this convention? What's the theme of this convention?
What can we show people they play with and
Right.
we teach them about?
Exactly. So 40% of the collection has gone to them. And they're very excited about it. This was expressly donated. Something I wanted to mention was that it was donated to Guys, Games, and Beer as a entity, as a whole, what?
Well, I reached out to John because I wasn't sure the structure of it, but you found out as well.
Oh yeah, it's not a nonprofit or anything like that.
But John did tell me that the plan is for them to apply for nonprofit status.
Yes, in the interview it says that they have applied for nonprofit, and they'll get there. But the fact of the matter is, what they do, I think, is good. It's reasonable. It's what, and I think that this stuff is going to get used. They do not have the ability, and I don't know how this came about. I don't know what sort of conditions were placed on any of this, if anything, but they did specifically mention in that interview that they do not have the ability to sell because it is owned by them basically as a group. There are things that individuals have put into the Guys, Games, and Beer kind of archive, you could say, that they are free to take out and sell, but this stuff has been obtained as a group.
Well, yeah, John in the email to me, he was, by the way, very nice. He got back to me right away with my question because I believe
he's a mensch.
I believe that some people were confused. Like I didn't know some of this information John told me in the email that wasn't in the video.
Sure.
So that was important for me to find out. He did say that yes, there'll be an agreement in place that they will not sell any part of the collection donated, and the plan is for the games to be used for public events, public expos and events.
Yep.
This is something I didn't know. John formed a nonprofit in 2020 called the Northwest Video Game Museum. So he basically had a board of directors of folks. He did mention a board in the video, but he didn't say it was a board of directors of my nonprofit.
John's video is good, but there were some, and I don't think he admitted anything on purpose, but there were some gaps in there that maybe we can fill in.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to do. I'm being a journalist here. So the intent was to find a suitable location, and he said that in the video he had main contributors, people that would donate him items, like 1% of his collection was donated. 11,000 games, Pat Math, that's like 111 games, Pat Math, or items. Some were rare. He did mention like some of these were rare, expensive games. Like Aero Fighters, Metal Warriors for Super Nintendo, Power Slave for Sega Saturn, some 3DO games like Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. These are games that are worth money. Hard to find worth money. But he did say that along the way, they knew what was happening with these plans. They weren't left in the lurch. They're part of the board, the main contributors.
Which is, I think, a key thing to know. Good to know is that a lot of these key contributors, were ended up on the board.
Which again, he didn't say it in the video. That's why I'm like what's the structure here?
Basically, they helped steward the decisions. So the bigger players were involved. So not that anyone cares, but my thought is that I think it's incredibly generous of him to do it.
Absolutely.
And I think that 40% is going, just like I said, based on the excitement, based on the fact that this is not I have not seen them, but it's not an upstart group. They say they've been doing this for, I think it was like 15 years they've been going to conventions.
I think they've done the Midwest Gaming Classic, makes sense. But when you go to the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think I told you, I saw things there I never saw before.
Oh yeah. No, the Midwest Gaming Classic's insane.
Like
I only did it once, but it was insane.
They had this Pong collection last year. I went last year. I've gone twice. They did this like the one-off Pong like clone stuff. There's stuff I've never have seen before. These weird Pong one-off clones.
Right.
And so like if these are the sort of people with that passion, I'm all for it. I'm going to trust John's judgment when it comes to that.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be well handled. I think that's going to be a lot of use to those folks. I think a lot of people will continue to get enjoyment out of that stuff for years at various conventions.
However,
takes us to the 60%.
However,
60% of it went to Embracer. I'm not here to
Embracer Games Archive, which is a part of the larger company, the Embracer Group.
That makes me nervous. That was sold, and I have zero problems with that. I don't.
Can I, real quick?
Yeah.
John in the video did not directly say that the games were sold to Embracer. And I probably understand why. He probably didn't want either people to attack him or felt some guilt. I'm going to say to all of you, the problem with it, go kick rocks. It's his collection.
Yeah.
He can do whatever the hell he wants with it.
And I will...
You don't know what his personal situation is. You don't know his stress level. You don't know any of this. You have no right to judge him. If he decides, he can change his mind anytime. He's not locked into this idea. He doesn't, if he wants to sell it all, he wants to give it away, that's up to him.
And I want to touch on that a little bit first, because I did see some of those comments. I understand the reaction to it. I understand that the visceral based reaction is like, oh, okay, this person had games donated. This museum that they talked about is not happening the way they initially talked about it.
Sure.
Now I'm angry because blah, blah, blah. This is, this is a YouTuber taking advantage of people. But I don't see it that way. I think worst case scenario, John was maybe a little ignorant going into this in terms of the amount of work that it would involve at this end stage.
I would say that. So
that's it. However, you've got to be reasonable. If you are donating something to someone, if you are giving it to them, you can't be doing that sort of thing with strings attached. If you believe in this person's mission, you've got to understand that things happen and things fall apart. And in something that happens in something as big as a collection, it's ridiculous to think that at the end of it, he would have to sit there and go, well, this should probably go back to this person, and this should probably go back to this person.
John did in the email and the video say, if anyone had a problem, email me, we can talk about it. Whatever that means.
Right, which is good on him. But what I'm saying is he doesn't have that responsibility. I will say that in a lot, this is like consumer responsibility too. In a lot of ways, you've got to be aware of what you're doing and knowing that not everything goes perfectly and reaches it's like Kickstarter.
Yeah, I guess what I would only push back was this, is that he did in the email response to me say that no contributors have reached out to him yet and said, I have a problem with what you're doing.
Sure.
However, what I would have done, I'm not putting myself in his shoes, I would have at least let everyone know beforehand. That's all. That's a small thing, but it's not the end of the world. If the main contributors are on board, that's fine. But that's all. That's just my thing for my peace of mind. I would have said, hey, listen, this is happening. If you have a problem,
I get that.
I can get the games back to you that you donate. That's it.
I get that, and it sounds nice, but I do feel like depending on how many contributors there were, his video is doing that announcing.
Yes.
Get a hold of me if there's an issue.
Yes. He had two main contributors. They knew it was happening. I figured the main contributors are the lion's share of the games that are worth a ton of money.
However, back to the Embracer. So no issues with the sales, no issue with anything like that. I do worry that the games that are sent to that have been sold to Embracer will achieve what John wanted his collection to achieve. To
Embracer, they're going to achieve?
No, I don't believe the games that John has sold to Embracer will achieve what John wanted his collections to achieve.
Gotcha. To be seen by the public, to be utilized.
Yes. He was told that. I 100% believe him that he was told that. I believe him that him and his board talked about it. But this kind of also goes back to... This goes a little bit back to what we talked about with the Mod Retro. You have a lot of rich people telling you things because you have something they want. So I worry with the whole structure with it. If you go to the Embracer Archive website, it's just promises.
You want to talk about what the Games Archive, what it says, what their mission?
You go. I've been talking.
Oh, so. I don't have it up in front of me. But basically, it's a really nice, looks like basement, huge basement vault area.
It looks like the back of the Strong.
It's like at their headquarters. Like in downstairs, they have these huge. I love these movable shelves.
That's what they have in the Strong. The ones where you crank them out and they open. Yeah, I love them.
That's the one thing I do if I had Rich and have something weird like that. And they have a nice setup display, I guess, to talk about things. They have people, and I've met Thomas. I actually met him at Retro Spill Messen several years ago. He's now with Embracer. He's part of the team. They help restore the hardware, make sure it's running. I think the goal, Ian, is to catalog everything they have a picture of. Like, that's one of their goals, is that, hey, we're
To
going
have an online picture-based museum. Yes.
a picture catalog, which is nice. Other people have done this, but like to have it all in one place because they have over 80,000 items.
Yeah.
Once you get into the tens of thousands, now you're talking about trying to, you know what I mean, one of everything. You know,
Real quick, one thing that was interesting to me about the Embrace thing is I believe they were interested in John's stuff because he had so much that they were missing. And that's when I learned that the Embracer archive was actually, it had, my understanding from reading was it had huge holes in American collections. You kind of forget that video games are global. And it's like, so are those 80,000 items all European? Are they Japanese?
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, it's not
Japanese
enough.
and European. So it was just interesting to me that, you know, this archive has 80,000 items already, but had huge American library holes.
Yes, and so that's probably why it was only 60%. Not maybe they had a bunch of the rest.
Right.
Oh yeah, we've always had more console games in Europe.
Well, I think John. I have a feeling John would have made sure some of that was donated.
Oh sure, maybe either way.
Yeah.
Maybe they get, let's see, what's 60% of 11,000? 6.5. So now they have 86,000 games. Once you get to those numbers, that probably includes computer, I'm guessing, because once you have computer, you have 10, 20,000 computer games easily. Probably more than that, 30,000. So here's the thing. I have way stronger issues with this. I know if it's stronger than you, because these games are going to a vault, and I would venture to say, based upon the structure of this company, being that it's Embracer, it's not a subsidiary, it's not a nonprofit, they're at the whim now, Ian, of whatever the larger company says.
Yes.
So the cynic in me sees this happen. And this does not mean that the people working for the archive itself, it's like a handful of people, aren't doing good work and believe in what they're doing. However, they're not in control. They're not in control of these games.
Well, one of them is the CEO, they says. It's the CEO and 4 other people, I think, who work as the game archive.
CEO of the archive, not of the whole company. Is it the whole company?
That's what I thought I had read. Yes.
All right. This is still a business. Please double check that. This is something the CEO of Embracer that's worth $300 million or more is working in the vault every day. Is that what you're saying?
I'm looking again.
So here's the point. These are assets now of the larger company. These assets can be used in a variety of ways. It can be used as a depreciating asset. Probably, I would guarantee you, they're used in some form in their taxes. It's an asset. You buy it.
Sure.
You buy it, it's an asset. It goes against your whatever your tax in Sweden. It's appreciating asset. Basically, what a depreciating asset means, Ian, and for those out there, it means you can over several years take a portion of what you paid for it to offset your tax liability. I guarantee you that's what's happening. No company is, out of the goodness of their heart, just going to say, we're going to spend this year, Ian, $100,000 on this vault, and it's just going to sit there. No.
Okay. It just says the CEO, archivist, technical engineer, and supply manager. It doesn't specify.
Okay. The point is this. Those games are tied to the larger company. Those items are tied. John's games, once they're taken in possession, are tied to the larger company. Whether that means the company is sold, the company is divested, or what the company goes out of business. Those games eventually would have to move, and whatever that means.
Right. It's not just Embracer. It's the fact that it's tied to any commercial entity like that.
Yes. And so I had questions that I was curious about. I emailed Thomas at Embracer, who works for the archive, that I've talked to. I met him at least once in Retro, but at PRGE he came around, gave me his card again. He said I can email him. I've yet to hear back by the time of this recording. I emailed him 4 days ago, on the 20th. Here's my questions, Ian. I think these are reasonable. The indication is that 60% of John's collection that is going to the archive is a sale and not a donation. John confirmed that, so that question's gone. That's fine. I don't care about the price. It's not my business to know the price specifically.
No.
I asked, have there been other acquisitions that were a sale of this size? That's just my curiosity. How long has the acquisition been in the works for? I just wondered because he showed up at PRGE, and I was like, to me, like, oh, maybe he made the deal then. Maybe he found out John wanted to sell them. This is what's important, this next question. How often is the archive presently accessed by request by the public? Per week, per month? Are there examples of the archive having been used for research or a similar purpose? What would you like to see for the archive's future? That to me is the bread and butter of the issue to me.
Is this a fancy rich person's collection with a costume on, or is this actually being used for something?
Is this a tax depreciating asset that I can eventually then sell and make a profit on this stuff? Can I do that? Because the cynic in me says, if I'm running the business, that's how I would do it. If I'm running this huge company, it's depreciating asset over several years. Then I can then, Ian, sell if I want, especially if I'm getting a discount, which I believe John did not sell them close to market value. So to me, the cynic says, yeah, this looks nice, Ian. We have a basement.
You know that?
You said in the email.
Yeah, wow.
So the cynic in me says this is a tax thing that can be turned into a profit thing later. Not saying it will happen, but it can. And the fact that it's not publicly accessible, the fact that I have to make an appointment, Ian, who's going to do that? These games that John has sent over are now way more difficult for me to access versus if they were here.
This is a large problem with these archives in general, though. Most of the stuff at the Strong you cannot access without an appointment either.
Sure, but the fact of the matter is they're missing a bunch of North American stuff. They want to get everything. I get it. Great. Now it's harder for me to access it as a North American researcher.
Sure.
To me, it doesn't make any sense on the surface. It just doesn't. Like, I'm not saying they can't do it, but if they were just focusing on Europe, that makes sense. European, like the likelihood of me booking a trip to Sweden to access something rare, I might as well buy it. It would be cheaper for me to buy 99% of the, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes. I would just buy it.
Obviously you would, I'm just,
or fly in the U.S.
You would bulk in a bunch of other research you had to do. But yes, it would be cheaper on a piece by piece to absolutely just buy most of that shit.
That's what I mean. So to me, it sounds nice in theory, but that's why I wanted to see, like, what are the test cases of this archive?
Right.
That's what I mean.
Yep.
What was the last thing I said? I was interested in the budget, how they just come about the budget. Like, what is Embracer Group has to have a lot of budget for the salaries and for the acquisitions. It's not a blank check. It can't be. It's a publicly traded company, as far as I know. Like, it can't be a blank check. It has to be like, what is it? Eventually, they're going to run out of things to buy too, which I think is an interesting question. What happens when they run out of things to buy and restore, and now it's just sitting there? That's just a question in my head. Then finally, is there a contingency in place for the games and consoles in the archive if Embracer can no longer support the archive monetarily, in case Embracer divests, the company is sold, or any other reasons? That's my issue.
So I want to know that too. I have a feeling that John did not do this without asking some of those questions.
I won't go that far, but maybe.
No, what I'm saying is, I believe he did. I believe he asked some of these questions. I don't think there's a chance in hell that between him and the board, someone is not concerned about a contingency plan if something happens here. That said, doesn't mean that what they said is 100% factual or true. But I feel like this would have been a concern they would have when trying to find a place. That also said, I do think at this point, you really think these are not basic questions that they're not asking?
No, but I think that this is literally plan D. Maybe like it's this or nothing.
Yes. And I do think, I was going to say, obviously I feel like this has got to be exhausting and John's tired and John's kind of done with it. However, whether it's a real plan or not, I have a feeling that these questions were at least asked to soothe some doubts.
Sure, but
I don't. Again, I'm not saying that I would believe the answers. I'm not saying that if there was an answer that means everything's okay. Well, I'm just saying that I don't think John would have not asked.
It doesn't matter if you believe him or not. They can believe it, the people that work there, but next year they can say, guess what? We're closing the archive.
I know.
Oh, I forgot to answer. I asked, this is a question I wanted to know. I should have looked it up. Does Embracer Group own or lease the building in which the archive is housed? That's a pretty important question.
And the other thing, and this is not meant to sound snarky, but we're talking about good plans not ending how the person saw them. What's to say that Embracer's good plans are not going to end how they saw them. Where do these collections keep going? At what point does at what point do they just become something that gets thrown on an auction block?
Yeah, unfortunately, people's lives can end tragically. Things can happen. We remember the podcast was like 2016 or 17, maybe, when it was a collector in Jersey that passed away. I don't know who the person was, but they had to hire a company to like mark the prices up and everything. It was we commented on their house. They had everything. There was TurboGrafx there, and then the collector with the computer museum in Canada that passed away. His name escapes me right now. He passed away tragically, and they didn't know what to do with the collection.
Right.
They had no idea.
So
his poor wife had no idea what to do with it.
Anyways, I mean, that's it. It's rare that I feel like a collection sale is worth talking about, but as a collection that has been used as that it's just kind of become, what should I say, expected to be seen at places like PRG and things like that.
Yeah,
it's an end to a productive era of getting those games out there in front of people.
Yeah, and there's not many collections that you can probably find video game wise that would be larger. That
people would call John
collection
when they needed something for their display or their museum.
Yeah, it's probably, I don't know, top 20, top 30 in the world probably. I don't know how many people have any more than that. Right. Top 10, I have no idea.
But he said he's sticking around. He's still doing videos. He says he's going to be focusing on homebrew, which definitely seems to be a passion of his.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, best of luck to the Guys, Games, and Beer crew. I feel like they're going to have a lot of fun with that. And that's pretty much all I've got to say.
Yeah, I believe getting the monkey off his back, it probably feels great.
He looked happy in his video.
It's turning a page. I just hope that what Embracer gets utilized in a way that's satisfactory to not just his wishes, but like what the community can get out of it.
Sure.
That's all.
Yep. That's it.